Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We'll get started in just a few moments. Lori, I think we can go live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's national webinar, Building Our Future, Policy and Practice for Latino Business Growth, a part of AEO's Equity and Opportunity for All series. We are thrilled you could join us as we recognize Hispanic Heritage Month and celebrate the extraordinary contributions of Latino entrepreneurs to our economy and communities. This is also a time to reflect on challenges that persist and the work ahead to ensure Latino-owned businesses have the tools and support they need to grow. Today's conversation will highlight both the scale and influence of Latino-owned businesses, as well as the opportunities to advance equity by expanding access to capital, strengthening networks, and creating pathways for sustainable growth. At AEO, we know that entrepreneurship is a pathway to prosperity, and supporting Latino businesses and Latino business growth is a vital part of building an economy that works for everyone. Before we begin, a few quick housekeeping notes. Forgot to mention, I'm Christina Benjamin. I'm a Strategic Events and Communications Manager with AEO. And as we get started, we'd love to hear who we have with us and who you all are in the audience. So please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat, share where you're joining from and the organization or business you represent. It's always inspiring to see the range of voices and communities gathered in this space. Today's session is being recorded, and we will share the link with all registered attendees afterwards. If you use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit questions throughout the session, and we will also be sharing useful resources in the chat throughout the event, including AEO's latest tools and insights on Latino entrepreneurship. So now, to officially open today's webinar, it's my pleasure to turn it over to AEO's President and CEO, Natalie Madeira-Cofield, for welcoming remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Madeira-Cofield, and I am the President and CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity, otherwise known as AEO. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's Equity and Opportunity for All webinar series. This series is a vital platform to elevate economic opportunity within the small business community. Each conversation brings together leading voices from research, practice, policy, and philanthropy to spotlight the challenges entrepreneurs face, and most importantly, the solutions that help them thrive. Since our founding in 1991, AEO has been the nation's leading voice for small business ecosystems. Our mission is simple yet powerful: to create economic opportunity for small business owners by ensuring access to the resources and systems they need to succeed. We represent and support more than 2,700 organizations across the country, from business support organizations to lenders, to provide advocacy, research, and capacity building resources. Over the years, AEO has helped shape policies and partnerships that have delivered more than $1 billion in resources to entrepreneurial ecosystems nationwide. Through initiatives like today's Equity and Opportunity for All, like our AEO Talks, our regional councils, and our Data to Dialogue research series, we bring stakeholders together to move from insight to action. These gatherings are designed not only to share knowledge, but to spark collaboration and create systems-level change that expands access to entrepreneurship for everyone. At AEO, we believe in the power of business ownership as a pathway to wealth, dignity, and community well-being. And we believe that every entrepreneur, regardless of race, gender, income, or background, deserves a fair shot at success. Thank you for joining us today and for being part of this critical work. I hope you leave not only with new insights, but with inspiration and ideas that you can take back to your communities. To get us started, it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Dr. Lori Smith, Senior Research Advisor at AEO. Lori brings deep expertise in small business ecosystems, inclusive entrepreneurship, and the data that frames today's conversation. Lori, over to you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Natalie. I'm Lori Smith, and I'm honored to be here today. So in this presentation, I'll highlight some of the really remarkable contributions of Latino business owners and some of the key barriers that many Latino business owners continue to face across the US. And there's a lot of really rich ground that we'll cover in the panel discussion today. So my goal is to start by sharing some context and some key data points to help set the stage for that discussion. But first, you can find more data in our recently released fact sheet shown here. And for additional insights, please visit our research website at research.aeoworks.org. And if you're interested in digging deeper into any of the data or the findings that we share today, we would absolutely love to hear from you. So you can contact us directly at research@aeoworks.org. So often whenever we hear about why we should pay attention to the Latino business community, we hear that this is one of the fastest growing segments of the US business community, and their contributions to the business community are really very substantial. Today, there are over 5.6 million businesses in the US that are Latino owned, and this is according to the most recent census data available from 2022. But national survey data from last year put the estimate closer to 7 million Latino entrepreneurs across the country, representing 20% of all entrepreneurs in the country. And these Latino-led businesses collectively employ about 3.6 million W-2 workers and generate nearly $1 trillion in annual revenue, really underscoring their significant impact on the economy. Then when we look at employment more closely, it's also important to note that the vast majority of Latino-owned businesses, like all businesses in the US, are small enterprises with no W-2 employees. But if we look at all types of workers, we find that most, or 55% of Latino entrepreneurs do engage at least one worker when considering all types of workers, including 1099 workers, temporary workers, and other categories. And this really speaks to their impact on creating jobs and opportunity across the country. So here's another way to look at the really tremendous growth of Latino-owned businesses. Since 2012, growth rates or the percentage change in the number of firms, the number of employer businesses, and annual revenue have been much higher for Latino-owned businesses than for all businesses as a whole. So here on the left in the blue bars, you see the growth for Latino-owned businesses versus all businesses in gray. And so the number of businesses grew by 69% for Latino-owned firms from 2012 to the most recent data year to 2022, which that census data is for data year 2021. But over this period, we've seen really tremendous growth. And growth rates in revenue, which were at 88% over this period, they've also been much higher than for any other demographic group during this period since 2012. And this trend of growth holds for any period you look at. So however we slice the time periods, you see the same trend of really remarkable growth. But this is even more marked after the pandemic. So just in the last data year that became available from the Census Bureau, we've seen really remarkable growth. And this is consistent with a whole stream of research, especially from coming out of Stanford, showing how Latinos are driving net new business growth across the country. So here's another way to look at Latino entrepreneurship. So a lot of you may have heard about a business ownership gap where we see fewer Latino businesses than we would expect given their share of the population. So Latinos make up today about 20% of the population, as shown in the gray bars here. And in the top blue bar, we see that Latino employer businesses make up only 8% of all employer businesses. This is actually up significantly from the previous data year. But this is to say that despite this really incredible growth in employer businesses, there's still a significant gap. Now, the gap is smaller when we look at all businesses here, so both firms with and without employees. Here, Latino-owned businesses represent 16% of all businesses. But what's really interesting is, again, when we look at nationally representative survey data on business owners, we see that 20% of business owners are Latino entrepreneurs, on par with their share of the population. So again, this translates to an estimated 7 million Latino entrepreneurs across the country. And this difference is owing to both the differences in data collection years, but also because census data are less comprehensive than survey data. So when we look at census data, it's more accurate to say that Latino entrepreneurs are underrecognized rather than underrepresented. And this means that we need to continue to make better data collection a priority to better understand and serve these entrepreneurs. But the impact and potential of Latino entrepreneurship goes beyond just economic output. It's also about supporting business owners who will hire and reinvest in their communities, building an economy that truly works for everyone. So we just talked about creating jobs, but another important question is about the quality of these jobs, because that's really important for shaping economic mobility in communities across the US. And so there's also evidence to suggest that Latino business ownership is really strategic for creating good jobs. So here is data on benefits provided to employees in Latino-owned businesses versus all businesses and all other businesses. And across most categories, Latino entrepreneurs are more likely to offer benefits than non-Latinos. So this applies for benefits ranging from health insurance to paid leave to profit sharing. So what's the challenge? Well, one challenge is a persistent credit gap. So last year, Latino entrepreneurs reported being denied credit at significantly higher rates than white-owned firms. This is data from the Small Business Credit Survey. And while Latino entrepreneurs are playing this outsized role in the business community, their impact could be even greater with increased access to small business credit. Research has shown how important starting capital is as a really important driver of revenue growth and scalability. And then another challenge is a persistent gap in resources and support. So last year, we saw that Latino entrepreneurs reported greater challenges accessing resources and support than other business owners. And this holds across a whole array of different types of support. So from finding advice or role models to finding and affording professional support. And so Latino businesses, we've seen, are both a powerful engine of US economic growth, and they're still facing systemic barriers. And so in the current macro environment, additional trends are also impacting Latino-owned businesses. So first, the latest Small Business Credit Survey that was fielded late last year shows that for the first time since 2021, more firms reported revenue decreases than increases. 75% of small businesses reported rising costs of goods, services, and wages as their top challenge. And then over half struggle to reach customers, and 1 in 3 carries 6-figure debt. So this is data for all businesses, but for Latino entrepreneurs, these headwinds hit even harder. So for businesses operating with thinner margins, with more limited access to capital, this creates a special challenge. And then there's also reports from market intelligence firms in the restaurant industry that have shown drops in foot traffic, and especially in Latino communities versus other communities across the US, and how this is affecting Main Street businesses. So the message is clear. Resilience alone won't close these gaps. Capital, policy, and support strategies must do more. And so this is exactly where our panel comes in. So to help us explore these trends and opportunities, I'm thrilled to turn it over to our panel, a really incredible group of leaders and advocates. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel moderator, Bria Marie Hodge. Bria serves as the Director of Small Business Development for the Latino Economic Development Center. Bria has a rich background in entrepreneurship, entertainment, and community development. Bria holds a Bachelor of Arts in Business and Entrepreneurship from Temple University, and her leadership journey spans various industries. At 25, Bria founded and successfully operated a network of dance fitness studios in Philadelphia, managing all aspects of business planning to daily operations, witnessing substantial growth to 3,000 plus clients across 2 locations. And then amid the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, she adeptly transitioned the business to virtual platforms, expanding to a global reach. Bria's contributions extend beyond her entrepreneurial ventures. As Vice President of Historical District Business Association, she played a key role in fostering local business growth. Her professional trajectory continued at CDFI Friendly America, where she led a marketing team connecting small businesses to community development financial institutions and managed internal communications, administration, and event planning teams. Rooted in entrepreneurship, Bria actively assisted her father's entertainment business, contributing to marketing, management, booking, and performances. And this unique perspective has shaped her passion for business and community development. We're absolutely thrilled to have you guide today's discussion, Bria. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lori. And I did not expect to have that wonderful introduction of me. So thank you. I sound cooler than I am in reality. So I appreciate it. But welcome everyone to this exciting panel, and Feliz Mes de Herencia Hispana. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month to everyone. It's super, super important that we continue to focus on celebrating Latinidad and our communities that we have in this country. So I'm very, very excited to share the virtual stage, as I said in my LinkedIn post, with these trailblazers here. Ms. Luz Urrutia from Acción Opportunity Fund, Augusto Sanabria from Prospera, and Marla Bolanek, who I'm going to say first, LEDC alumni, and President and CEO of NowCab. But I will ask if you guys could introduce yourself, and let's start with Luz.
Sure. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Very good to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. I am Luz Urrutia. I'm the president and CEO of Acción Opportunity Fund. We are a leading nonprofit community development financial institution, CDFI, and we provide access to affordable loans, business advising, and support networks to businesses that have been left behind by the mainstream financial system, and we do that across the country.
Amazing. Thank you for being here, Luz. Marla?
Good afternoon, buenas tardes a todos. Marla Bolanek, I'm the president and CEO of NowCab, which is the National Association for Latino Community Asset Builders, or the longest name of an organization ever known to man. We are a CDFI intermediary, so we lend to groups like those that are represented on this call, as well as some that I see in the chat. And I'm happy to and proud to say that everyone on this call is also a NowCab member. So that's a wonderful thing. But I'll talk more about it in the panel, but we work to support nonprofit organizations and CDFIs. So our customers, unlike my colleagues on the call, are organizations that support small businesses. So I'm one step removed, and we'll talk about how that flows or doesn't flow into the communities where small businesses are located and Latino small businesses are located.
Thank you. And last but not least, Augusto.
Thank you, Bria, and thank to AEO for this wonderful opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Augusto Sanabria. I'm the president and CEO of Prospera, an organization that provides technical assistance to small business owners, primarily Hispanic business owners in Florida, Georgia, and in North Carolina. Happy to be here. Like Marla mentioned, great partners of NowCab. We've worked with Luz and Acción Opportunity Fund as well, and looking forward to engaging in the further discussion.
Awesome. Awesome. So as you all can see, we have some heavy hitters on the call with us today. So this is a conversation that I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for anyway, and now I get to moderate it. So here we go. So we talked a little bit in Lori's presentation. She talked a little bit about the challenges that we're seeing generally for the entrepreneurs in the U.S., but there are specific and really targeted concerns for the Latino community. What do you see as the most pressing challenges and opportunities then for Latino entrepreneurs right now? And whoever wants to start can, and then we can kind of feed off of each other.
I'm happy to start. The entrepreneurs with the most potential, unfortunately, are often the ones who face the steepest barriers to accessing capital and resources, like Lori mentioned. Limited wealth, credit history, networks, all of the above. And from my perspective, one of the greatest barriers that I see in my role for small businesses right now is flexible, affordable capital that meets them where they are. Many entrepreneurs, especially those that are underserved, struggle to qualify for traditional loans from banks because either they have no credit or thin files, they have limited collateral, not enough time in business, unpredictable cash flows, not the right documentation. And what they need most are affordable loans under $100,000 for working capital, equipment financing, with terms that truly reflect their business cycles. Another urgent gap I see is the early stage financing to help businesses get stable, to help them fulfill their orders, to build credit, to grow into larger mainstream capital sources, right? If they don't start here, how to get here? So it's sort of a vicious cycle. Another challenge isn't just accessing capital, right? But accessing the right kind of capital. Because too often small businesses get pushed into products that are fast, quick, they can get the money now, but they're predatory, like high cost merchant cash advances or high cost online lenders. And so we can change that by pairing financing with education and making sure that business owners understand the repayment terms, the true cost of that loan, and how the financing fits into their overall growth plan. And that education has to come from people on the screen and many others that are watching or that are perhaps not here, trusted partners. CDFI, small business development centers, responsible lenders, nonprofits. So it's accessible, it's culturally relevant, because good financing decisions can truly make or break a business.
Totally agree. And I see in the chat that we do have a lot of folks that are from CDFIs, that are from some of these resource centers. What opportunities, Augusto, do you think that we have to help our Latino entrepreneurs right now?
Well, I think, Brian, just to piggyback a little bit on what Luz mentioned, one of the main challenges that I see that is many times not necessarily the top thing that we kind of go to is the wealth building gap. And Lori mentioned it a little bit there. And I think that's a huge issue for us. You know, the organization that I have the pleasure to represent and work for has been around for 30 plus years. And constantly historically, we've been focused more on the helping individuals start businesses, right? Get going, set up the right foundation. And all that is great. And actually the data shows that obviously Latinos start businesses at a higher rate and all the great stats. But when we look at, you know, scalability, when we look at growth, wealth building, you know, that's where we see the real issue. And it all starts somewhere, right? And so I think Luz touched upon a lot of the things that happen in those early stages, and as well as when they're ready to grow and scale, they don't know, or that lack of financial literacy prevents them from accessing the right form of capital to really propel them into, you know, employment, you know, creating valuable employment. Another thing that Lori mentioned, wealth building and leaving a legacy as well for not only their families, but for their communities as well. So in terms of opportunities, I think is seeing ourselves as part of an ecosystem where everyone plays a role, again, to Luz's point, and really looking at the end game as kind of the North Star for all of us as an ecosystem to say, where do the business start, right? The individual, how do they grow, scale, build wealth and whatnot, and what role can you play as a community advocate, as a TA provider, or as a small business owner yourself?
Yeah. Marley, your point about NowCab having the longest name known to man, it's kind of par for the course in the CDFI world. So one, if you could explain, because there might be folks that don't know what CDFIs are, if you could talk a little bit about what CDFI means, and then kind of the challenges and opportunities that we have on Augusto's point.
Yeah, of course. So CDFI is a shortened way to say community development financial institutions. And really, I like to use our former Vice President Kamala Harris's term, which is just community lenders. It's much easier to understand, and I think everyone can resonate. It's lenders that are in communities. And maybe what's lost with that sort of shortened name is that these institutions are filling gaps that banks leave behind. So clients that they're not serving, for many reasons, it could be the size of the loan that's being offered. and that doesn't make sense for them financially to process. It could be the credit score or rigidity of the traditional financial market that does not permit folks who are a startup business or don't have a credit file because they just came to the United States and aren't used to sort of operating in our credit system. There are many, many barriers and hurdles, to accessing credit and capital. And so CDFIs come in and really take care of folks who are, for whatever reason, unable to access capital from, just the bank that you might have in the corner of your community. What I will say that's very interesting from my vantage point now, and as Bria mentioned, I did lead the organization that she currently sits in, and I actually also had her job at the organization. So fun fact, but
that means I have a great trajectory.
That's right. You'll have my job next. So, but what's interesting and maybe sad is that having been, on the ground working with small businesses now from my vantage point, serving nonprofit organizations and CDFIs, a lot of the challenges that Latino business owners face are also faced by Latino CDFIs. So we recently completed a study with the Urban Institute and Raza Development Fund that looked at Latino CDFIs across the country. And two things that stood out to me were, one, that Latino CDFIs are more efficient. So they basically have like higher self-sufficiency ratios. They're doing better as a whole versus the rest of the sector, but they're not accessing funding outside of bank funding. This is just a general overview, but the funding that they're accessing is traditionally bank funding, but they're not accessing federal funding and they're not accessing philanthropy. So similar to small businesses that are Latino-owned, Latino-run CDFIs have a whole sort of world of funding that they're not accessing. And the reason why that's important is that it's not trickling down to the communities that they serve. So another data point that I wanted to mention is that the world of microlenders is over-indexed with Latino run nonprofits and CDFIs. And that's not because that's what our community needs. It's because that's the amount of capital that our organizations are getting that they can then on lend in their communities. So if I had to sort of go deeper and do my own extrapolation from that data point, it is that with less capital, you want to have greater impact. So you want to make more loans. So you cap your loans at a smaller ceiling. So you're going to make loans of 50,000 and below so that you can reach more business owners. But that doesn't mean that the business owners only need 50,000 and below. And often when they get to that next stage that Luz and Augusto were referring to, the CDFI that they've been working with can't then meet them where they are to get to that next level. So it's, I'm not here to be the Debbie Downer of the call, but it's just been interesting for me to be kind of on the ground and now stepping back and looking at the group of CDFIs and how that those challenges are mirrored in both the entrepreneur and the organization serving the entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think kind of what I'm hearing from all of you is that there's ways to support the folks that are continuing to start the businesses, yes, but we have to also think about our entrepreneurs that are trying to move to the next level, the accelerator businesses, and how we can continue to support them grow. Great, that's awesome. Thank you. So part of the challenges in the country right now are we're seeing everyone knows we're seeing ICE presence in different places. So it's drastically affecting the foot traffic, the patronage that a lot of our retail businesses in specific are having. We were talking before this call for everyone's sake. I serve as the co-chair of the Mid-Atlantic region for AEO. So we're DMV, Delaware, Pennsylvania area, but specifically in the DMV, there are malls in Latino centric neighborhoods, one in particular, La Union in Wheaton, Maryland, that's empty right now, just because it's a high Latino population, and folks, no matter where they are in their process of citizenship, there's fear to come outside. And so with businesses that are experiencing that, whether it's their employees or their customers, what lessons from another time like COVID, where people were not on the streets, what lessons do you think we can learn and give to our businesses today? Augusto, do you want to start?
Well, I was gonna say that I feel that COVID, I guess, obviously taught us many things, right? As business owners and as TA providers in how we had to pivot almost overnight, right? Into the virtual world, into reaching our customers in a different way. And our clients and our business owners also had to pivot and change their business models. And I was this is not an actual study that we did, but we were informally gathering with some of our clients, and there were many restaurant owners in that group, in that sort of round table that I was having a conversation with them, and they told me that before COVID, their takeout and online traffic was maybe, when they were doing it really good, 5 to 10%. There are now restaurants that over 70% of their revenue streams are takeout and online. And we can mix that with a lot of other issues that we have, which is not going to restaurants and I guess socializing with other individuals. But that's a separate topic. But what I wanted to share was that many business owners have shifted and have adopted technology. We've been working with one of our partners, Comcast, in the digital divide in terms of bringing technology to small businesses and adopting those technologies. There are studies that say that Latinos do adopt technology rather quickly, but we don't use it as much as other businesses. For example, we teach our clients how to use QuickBooks, online QuickBooks, instead of keeping the la caja de zapatos with all the receipts and all of that and taking it to the
Yeah.
CPA. So, those little things, remember, we don't have a lot of employees, right, working for us. And so we have to wear a lot of hats. So using technology, using now AI, using other business tools will help us, I think, navigate or transition this next cycle that we're now experiencing. And so I think we're all are kind of doing a similar thing in trying to help our clients do more online and use more technology, but I think we need to do more. And I think it's going to hurt. And many of our clients are struggling. To your point, Bria, we have heard from them as well. And so we just have to continue providing them the resources and some solutions in order for them to pivot and continue to survive.
Mm-hmm. The QuickBooks Online is wonderful. My husband literally this morning asked me, "Will the accountant accept a receipt from Costco if it's online?" Yes, they will. They will. They will. But that actually goes to one of the questions in the chat. That just a follow-up question for that specifically. Are there specific digital literacy skill gaps that you're seeing with your clients moving to online, but maybe are there some more fundamental ones?
Well, I can say that for us, social media, and taking advantage of social media to increase your revenues, delivering your message and promoting your business and all of those things. I can tell you that some of the best attended seminars that we have throughout our footprint in the 3 states that we cover is social media, artificial intelligence, and all that. So I think they want to, and they're kind of thirsty for that knowledge. So helping them get and embrace some of that technology is going to go a long way.
I totally agree. We're seeing the same thing at LEDC in that we've been doing cohorts just from digital basics, G Suite, Gmail, using a laptop, programs where we can give out the laptops because a lot of our businesses are using their phone to run their business, and it's something that we have to consider as we provide our services. Luz, what are some kind of tools that you guys are using here?
Yeah. So, I do want to acknowledge, because I'm sure there's a lot of people on the phone that are listening and are experiencing a lot of anxiety and fear. Clearly, we are not in the same level of crisis, right, as we were during COVID. But we're certainly seeing, a lot of small businesses are struggling because of this workforce challenges and the anxiety about immigration enforcement. But there's also tariffs and economic uncertainty and climate events, right? So there's just a lot that is weighing down on us, and we have to acknowledge that and say it's okay to feel overwhelmed right now, and hopefully together we're gonna fix this, and we're gonna figure it out. We are certainly, I'll share a little bit about what we're seeing and sort of what we're doing about it. We're seeing a lot of folks experiencing issues managing their staffing levels because they're facing fluctuating demand in their business and economic uncertainty. And so do I hire or do I not? If I have someone that's not performing, do I fire them or do I keep them because I don't know if I'm going to be able to hire someone else? There's also a lot of reduced workforce availability, and there's less reliance, as we know, on Latino and immigrant workers. Many of our customers report, reduced foot traffic, right? That's impacting their business. And businesses that are run by immigrants right now are becoming a lot less communicative due to a mix of, again, financial distress and fear. And so we're trying to employ ways in which we can, get to them to help them with their need. Businesses right now need a lot of help. And that's sort of what the comparison is to COVID, right? The help is needed. It's just kind of a different kind of help. I know that CDFIs, certainly, and us, we continue to step in and, on the one hand, providing responsible, flexible financing with less stringent requirements to help them get over this hump. And, if they get in trouble or they don't have enough cash flow, giving them loan payment, or, skip a pay, loan modification, tips on how to better manage cash flow, right? We don't just offer loans, we also offer very extensive business advising and education because we do believe that the combination of the two is really what helps small businesses drive economic mobility, get through times of uncertainty, and build financial well-being, particularly now. But I'm going to say one thing, beyond what we can offer as CDFIs, we are encouraging our clients to not do this entrepreneurship as it stands right now alone. Building a community around us, finding mentors and coaches and peers who can help us avoid those costly mistakes, connecting with organizations like SBDCs and the SBA and CDFIs and chambers that offer, advice, education, digital tools, to help use sometimes the limited capital that small businesses have right now very wisely, because we know from experience that when you surround yourself with a community that believes in you and equips you with the tools and the resources that you need, in times like this, the risks become much more manageable and your chances of getting through this perfect storm grow. So I think support networks are super critical at this day and age.
I 100% agree. And I think that's why groups like NowCab specifically are so important, because while we convene the entrepreneurs, we need somebody to convene us and help us get through these tough times. So Marla, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? I know what's happening at my organization, but what are you hearing from others?
Yeah, I would absolutely echo what Luz was saying. I was just recently in Denver with several of our members, and one of the members actually did like an actual analysis of the foot traffic coming through, and they just had such a steep drop on their, Latino clients that were typically coming through, and also folks who were requesting loans for the first time. And so that, is a sobering, data point. I think another thing that we've seen reported is the challenge for CDFIs that are having performance issues from their businesses, their borrowers, who have challenges specifically around this immigration challenge. So either, they have staff that is no longer coming, they have customers that are no longer coming, perhaps even the business owner themselves does not feel comfortable reporting to the office, where some of these technology solutions, can be helpful, but I don't know that they address the whole challenge. They've been sort of coming to us to say, what do I do here? Because the macro problem that will occur is that if folks in the CDFI world have portfolios that are not performing, then it becomes more challenging for them. Again, this mirroring is just uncanny. So if you're a CDFI that has a portion of your portfolio that is not performing because the small business borrowers cannot repay after a certain point, you then, when you're seeking capital again as the CDFI, have a challenge in explaining, this story of why you've got several loans now that are going south. And so, or maybe the lender is just not sympathetic to that. It's sort of, too bad. So that's something that we're working with members around. Is there a way to kind of disaggregate segments of your portfolio to sort of demonstrate that this is a specific challenge to now? But those are definitely trends that we're seeing among our membership, and we're trying to come up with creative solutions. I think the parallel to the pandemic, and someone said to me, I can't remember who it was to give them credit, but that we're in a political pandemic. I feel like in some ways the pandemic itself, the original medical pandemic, it felt different than what we're experiencing right now. And so again, trying to be creative. On the positive side, I do find, and we just came off of our national conference, being together, even in this setting, virtually with you all, it's more uplifting than ever. It's more, heartwarming and positive. We were worried going into our conference that we may, how can we even have a conference when everything that's going on outside, and it ended up being a really, really positive and uplifting moment of solidarity. So I would agree with Luz's point, like just the same way that small business owners shouldn't do it alone, we all, need each other and need to rely on one another in these times.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Just a follow-up question that I actually do want to get to in the chat. They ask, what innovative ways would you suggest we use to reach out to our community to continue to convene here safely? I think we can offer things like this. We can continue to do virtual options, but what do you think?
Well, I can share that we've well, first of all, I think we all as entrepreneurs serving organizations, we build the relationship with your community. It takes years, right? I mean, when we've expanded into a new community, it takes us a few years to build those solid relationships and the trust of the community to come to us in normal times, right? So obviously, we just addressed and we concluded that we're not in normal times right now. So what innovative ways have we used as an organization is we meet individuals where they are. So we may pivot more into offering virtual options, to your point, Bria, individual virtual options. We also go more to either community centers or public libraries or other areas where we've done and we know that we're going to be taken care of, where the community feels safe, and we will convene there. Obviously, we can be flexible with when and how we meet with our business owner, but definitely our education seminar in-person attendance have come down since everything that's going on, but the request for assistance and the need for our assistance has gone way up. And so, we've had to get more creative, and again, doing it more, meeting each individual where they are and doing it individually.
I 100% agree. I think that meeting folks where they are virtually, there's a blessing and a curse to that we can continue to reach our entrepreneurs at home, but so can the predatory lenders. So
Correct.
how can we work with our entrepreneurs to help them not fall prey to fintech lending that can be more predatory? There are some good ones, but some that aren't.
Yeah.
And then as kind of the credit markets tighten, how can we help them?
Yeah. That's a really, I mean, because right now is when they are all coming out to pray. And I think that's super important to, glad you're bringing this up. And look, Latino entrepreneurs often face the double challenge of either no credit or tighter credit, where at the same time, they have, you know, these fast growing merchant cash advance and online predatory lenders that promise quick money, but can severely impact a small business ability to survive. And so we need to make sure that Latino business owners get access to the right kind of capital.
Yeah.
Loans that actually help them grow and not just debt that piles up and traps them. And so what we generally say to small business owners is this: look, there are a few things you need to keep in mind when you're looking for a loan. First is that don't just look at speed. A loan you can get today or tomorrow isn't always the best one. That's number one. Also, ask for what is the annual percentage rate, the APR. You know, that's the real cost of the loan. Some loans have factor rates, right, or flat fees that when you do the calculation, you end up being way more expensive in what you're paying than they look, right? Also, make sure you're checking often how much you have to pay. You know, there are loans that allow you to pay daily or weekly, and that can drain your cash flow fast, but also it can help you to get out of credit sooner, right? Assuming that the loan is responsibly constructed. Understand the trade-offs. That's super important. And then know what the total payback is. When you add up all that you've repaid over time, interest and the principal or the fees, make sure that the profits can cover it. And get advice before signing. You know, we say to people, the time to get advice for a loan is not when you need it, is before you need it, right? Develop that network, find responsible lenders, local CDFIs, small business development centers, technical assistance providers, responsible lenders that can help you compare offers of the loans or the capital that's being offered to you. You know, as nonprofits, and it's only not nonprofits that offer responsible loans. There's plenty of for-profits that also offer responsible loans. But in the case of nonprofits, we operate to benefit our borrowers 100%, not holders, not ourselves. And so transparency is very important to make sure that business owners understand, again, repayment terms, the true cost of capital, how this financing is helping fit into their growth plans. Because credit needs to be a tool to build your business, not a trap. And the more we combine access to responsible capital with good information, the stronger Latino businesses will be.
And if I may, Bria, add to what the great information that Luz gave, we spoke about a lack of access to credit and bad credit, but we also have to realize that we have a cultural mindset of cash-based economies, right? So those of us who were born in Latin America are typically used to paying and financing, you know, is paying everything in cash. So even a responsible business practice, like not having debt and paying everything in cash here in the US, that's the wrong strategy. That is the wrong strategy. So as an organization who primarily focuses in that startup phase, from the get-go, like as we discuss legal structures and occupational licenses, we are talking about, hey, get a CDFI loan, get a microloan, start building your credit so that they can start assimilating that, you know, the using those financial tools to not only build credit, but hopefully build them for success in the future. Because to Luz's point, you know, if you're asking for a loan when you need it, that's, you know, it's almost too late. And so on our end, we're planting the seed as early as we can so that they can get used to the fact that they have to get into the system, into the credit system.
Yeah. Go ahead, Marla.
Oh, I was just going to add a very short point, which I think nonprofits and CDFIs are so creative. And I think that's something that is sometimes overlooked is that, in the corporate world, you may have an idea today that like by the time it gets through all the layers of approvals, it will no longer be relevant by the time it's ready to go. Whereas, nonprofits and CDFIs can, have an idea today and implement it tomorrow. So I would just encourage for the organizations that are on this call, you know your community better than anyone. And I find, while it's not the traditionally thought of, machine for creative ideas, these times actually do stimulate having to think outside of the box. And this is just kind of a generic call to action, just that, you may find a solution that's very, very unique and specific to your neighborhood and your community, that's kind of under your fingertips. So I would just kind of ask that the organizations kind of think what is, I know one of our member neighborhoods changed the open business hours for their businesses to like be in the night instead of 9 to 5. So people felt more comfortable, either working or shopping. I don't know that that's necessarily relevant today, but at the time it seemed to align with the presence of ICE in their community. So I would just say like there may not be a solution for everyone, but I do think there may be sort of a very tailored and bespoke solution that applies to your community that might be sort of just under your nose if you let it percolate.
Yeah. And I think that's all the more reason why it's so important to connect with the organizations, or if we are the organizations, as I also said, meet them where they are so we can analyze that specific case. So I think that's so important. Last big question, and then we'll have a rapid fire. Policy. Lots of funding changes, lots of policy changes all around, specifically affecting Latino entrepreneurs and the organizations in which we are that serve them. So what changes stand out the most, and how should we adapt here? Nose goes. Whoever is first.
I'll start and hand it off, just taking, again, from the organizational point of view. I do think, one approach is just actually watching and being very attuned to the policy landscape and, listening to the SBA administrator, listening to the agency officials and, the groups that govern our work or that align with our work traditionally, and see what their priorities are. You can, uplift work that you're doing. It may be work that you're already doing, that you can just kind of put a spotlight on to align with the priorities of the current administration. And I'll just give a kind of neutral example is that, this administration is very focused on rural initiatives. So if your organization is doing work in rural areas, I know I can say LADC, I know a lot of the work that LADC has been doing. They didn't even realize that communities that they were working in are classified as rural by the USDA. So, kind of taking a look at your work that you're already doing and getting the messages coming down from on high and seeing where they may be an overlap or maybe something new that you might want to try. And I'll hand it
I
off
would
to
say the biggest change that I've seen in our geographies where we operate as an organization is the most city or counties have eliminated the minority certification programs and some of the set-asides. So obviously now, as they are certifying companies more as small businesses rather than minority-owned businesses, that kind of elevates or makes our Latino-owned businesses have to compete at a higher level. So obviously that's detrimental, right? Because there used to be kind of like a leg up, so to speak, to be able to access contracts. Now there isn't. And so because there isn't now, we have to work even harder as practitioners and ESOs to ensure that our small businesses are ready to compete at that next level. And that's where I had mentioned that understanding not only your local community, to Marla's point, but also your ecosystem and who else plays a role in that kind of atmosphere for us is not only CDFIs, but chambers of commerce and others who are advocating and presenting our small businesses with those procurement opportunities is extremely important. So we know that they have to have everything, even in a better, kind of better accounting, better credit, better capability statement, even more certifications in order for them to compete. So that's what I would say.
Mhm.
Very briefly, lending transparency is very much needed, right? To ensure that those that are providing capital to small businesses are accountable and transparent and, uncover the gaps in the system that are impacting businesses that are accessing credit, right? So today, many of you may know there's no such thing as a Truth in Lending, Federal Truth in Lending Act for small businesses. When you go and take a home loan or take a car loan, you sign a document that discloses your rates, the terms, when the loan starts, when it ends, penalty fees. There's no such thing for small businesses because there has been a fight to enact a federal truth in lending for small businesses. So because small businesses don't have that transparency and that accountability, there is something called the Small Business Borrower Bill of Rights. And I would encourage anyone on this call as an entrepreneur that is seeking to access capital to go and access it. Small Business Borrower Bill of Rights basically says, here are the six things that if I'm going to borrow money, I should have or I should know. And so take that if you're going to go and access capital and sit down with your lender and say, do you do this? Do you report credit? How do you treat me in the case there is a challenge and I cannot make a payment? There is very important that how do you underwrite the loan? Are you going to give me a loan that I can afford to pay back? You know what your loan is. You know how much you can pay back. Are they giving you a loan that's bigger than that, right? All of those things are really important to make sure that even though the policy is not helping us and the transparency is not there, that at least you are making the right decisions for your business when you access capital.
Mic dropped. If you were not taking notes, everyone, that is what you should take a note on. Small Business Borrower Bill of Rights there. Thank you, Luz. So we are going to close with just one question. If you could give one sentence, leave the audience with an action item, no matter where they come from as an entrepreneur, as a CDFI, give them one action item. Marla, I will start with you.
Sure. So I would say, I talked a lot about mirroring in my comments, and I would just say it would be great if lenders that are lending to CDFIs would take the same approach that CDFIs take in looking at small business owners and look at the full context and the full picture of their CDFI that's trying to borrow capital from them. Because there's a story there and it makes sense and it clarifies. And I just don't want our CDFIs to lose out on opportunities to on lend in their communities.
Love it. Augusto, I know you were unmuted at first.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for those of us who are ESOs, partner. Find, there is no one solution, not one organization that can help and satisfy the needs of our Latino businesses. So look in your community, find partners, and work together.
Amazing. Luz.
I'd say, to small businesses, stay adaptable, keep leaning, and lean on the right kind of capital and strong networks, because those are the businesses that will thrive as markets change. And always remember that when you're growing your business with the right support, you're just not creating personal success, but you're building jobs, you're building wealth and opportunity in your communities. And that's powerful. And that's why organizations like ours and many other CDFIs are here to invest in you. So keep it up. We're going to get through this.
That's the perfect way to end. Thank you, Luz. Thank you, Marla. Thank you, Augusto. This was amazing. And I hope the audience felt the same way. I will pass it back to Lori for closing remarks.
Give us 1 second. What a fantastic discussion, and a big thanks to our incredible panelists for sharing their experience, expertise, and perspective on the vital role Latino entrepreneurs play in shaping our economy. On behalf of AEO, I also want to extend our gratitude to you all for joining us and contributing to this important conversation with your questions, with your presence. As our panelists reminded us, we have a role to play, each of us, in advancing the equity and opportunity for our economy and Latino entrepreneurs. Before we wrap up, I just want to share a few resources in the chat, and I'd like to invite you to our upcoming Equity and Opportunity for All webinars. On November 6th, we'll be recognizing the contributions of veteran entrepreneurs in honor of Veterans Day, and on November 18th, we'll be celebrating the contributions of Native entrepreneurs in honor of Native American Heritage Month. So November will be a big month, and we've shared the links in the chat where you can sign up for our newsletter and learn more about upcoming events, as we would love to see you in our future sessions. So again, thank you for being with us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.